A portion of this video is sponsored by UPDF. So these are two of Samsung's tablets, the Tab S9 and the Tab S9 Ultra. In this video, I want to talk about my experience with them, using them on a consistent basis, and talk about whether or not it's worth purchasing a tablet, and if so, which one should you be considering, the Ultra or the smaller Tab S9 version? So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about it. So I'm going to hit you with some specs first in case you've been living under a rock. On both of them, you will be getting an aluminum body, both the back and the frame, and they both have a soft and curved edges and rounded corners, so they actually do feel pretty comfortable in the hand. They don't dig into your palm or anything like that. They do feel very soft overall. Both of them use Corning Gorilla Glass on the front. Of course, the Tab S9 is an 11-inch display, and you'll notice that the bezels are just a little bit thicker, but the display quality should be pretty much exactly the same. The Tab S9 Ultra does have a 14.6-inch display and slightly slimmer bezels, which can be annoying when you're trying to use this handheld. You do have a little notch at the top for the cameras, but it doesn't get in the way at all when you're watching content because they both have a 16:10 aspect ratio. So if you weren't to pinch a zoom at all, you will have slightly small black bars on a 16:9 video. And if you were to pinch in the zoom, you'll likely not notice that notch at all. As far as the display technology, you will be getting a dynamic AMOLED HDR10 plus 120Hz 1440p display quality on both of them. You do get a peak brightness of around, I think, somewhere around 750 to about 900 peak brightness for both tablets. They both get plenty bright enough compared to the previous generation of Tab S8, so if you're using these outdoors, you should have an easier time using them. Both tablets have a quad firing speaker system, which overall sounds fantastic when watching movies and listening to music. Both of them also have a USB-C type port on the one side, and you also have power button and volume rocker on the right hand side when you're holding it in portrait view, as well as the micro SD card support. On the back of the device, you'll find your S Pen, which does come included in the box for both tablets. You'll notice that there is a small little indentation for your S Pen to go, and you can place that S Pen however you want on this magnetic strip, which does charge the S Pen, and it is pretty strong, so if you do shake it around a bit, it doesn't fall off pretty easily, but of course if you bump it onto something or put your tablet on a table, it might accidentally still fall off. You do have a flash and a single 13 megapixel camera on the Tab S9. And on the Tab S9 Ultra, you do get an 8 megapixel ultra wide and then also that 13 megapixel wide. On the front, you do get two dual 12 megapixel cameras, one being an ultra wide and one being a main wide. On the base Tab S9, you only get that 12 megapixel ultra wide on the front. And down at the bottom, you do have a proprietary magnetic pin connectors that allows you to connect Samsung keyboards to them. And both have an optical fingerprint sensor underneath the display and also facial recognition. Both work about 90% of the time. You will find that sometimes one or the other misses, so the camera may miss, so then you have to use your fingerprint sensor, or the fingerprint sensor will miss and you have to use facial recognition. But it's good that you have both of them because usually if one fails, the other one backs it up. And as far as what's powering these devices, both of them get the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 with the Adreno 740 GPU. And there's a handful of configurations you can get. With the Tab S9, you can get the base version, which is 128 gigabytes of storage with 8 gigabytes of RAM for a starting price of $799, or you can bump it up to about $920 and get 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. As far as the Tab S9 Ultra, it does start at $1199 with the base model having 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. Then you can up it up to a 12 gig model with 512 gigabytes of storage, and that starts at around $1,320. Or you can bump it up to a 16 gigabyte model with a terabyte of storage that starts at a price of $1,620. And I do also want to mention that the Tab S9 series is IP68 water and dust resistant rated as well. So overall, basically what all that means is that you're getting a flagship design, flagship hardware, flagship specs, performance out of both of these tablets. Of course, I do expect that because you are paying big bucks for these tablets regardless of the size. It's overall a fairly expensive tablet. Now, I do want to talk about my personal use cases for these tablets and whether or not I prefer the smaller one or the bigger one. So this should help you guys decide which size you should go for yourself, because for the most part, you'll be getting the exact same experience. It's really just going to come down to the sizing that you want. But before we get to that, thanks to UPDF for sponsoring a portion of this video. UPDF is an AI-powered PDF editor that allows you to view, annotate, convert, sign, and summarize PDFs across multiple platforms, including Mac, Windows, iPhones, iPads, and Android devices, including my Tab S9 and Tab S9 Ultra, all under one license. UPDF also offers their own cloud storage, which then makes it easy to manage and maintain all your PDF documents in the cloud and be able to access them from any of your devices. On both the mobile app and on the desktop versions, it's very easy to annotate and edit your PDFs. You can edit the text directly on a PDF by highlighting it, underlining it, strike throughing it, adding a squiggly line underneath. You can also add your own additional text using a text box or adding text directly into any field. On the desktop version, you're also able to view a slideshow version of it. So if you want to present your PDF to a group, you can easily do so. You can also add stamps, stickers, and also watermarks to your PDFs. Additionally, you could sign your PDF documents. With the Tab S9, you can use your S Pen to sign your signature and then drag and drop that same signature on any of your required fields. On the desktop version, you are able to type out your signature and then it'll convert it to an electronic version. On the desktop, you are able to convert any non-PDF document, such as an image, into a PDF document and then use OCR, which is optical character recognition, to then convert any text that's found on that image into editable and searchable text, which then means you can do all those editing options and features that UPDF provides onto this PDF document. And with UPDF AI, you're able to summarize hundreds of pages in a PDF into a quick summary of the most important content from the document. You can then use Ask PDF to ask the AI questions that relate to the PDF that it just summarized to get you more specific answers. Additionally, you can translate text from the PDF document as well, as simple as highlighting the text and then choosing Translate. If you also want to access a general AI chatbot, there's also the chat option that you can just ask pretty much any question like you would on any other generative AI chatbot. So use the link down in the description to check out UPDF yourself and also get an exclusive discount to UPDF Pro. And thanks again to UPDF for sponsoring this portion of the video. So the first use case I want to talk about is productivity. Within productivity, there's a ton of different things that you can do that consist of being productive on your tablet. The first one, in my opinion, is note-taking. With the S Pen included, both of them get the exact same S Pen functionality and S Pen experience. It just comes down to which size do you need to take your notes on. If you're someone who is maybe in college and wants to do a lot of traveling with it, maybe obviously takes it from class to class, from the dorm room to the classroom, and carries this in a backpack, you'll likely want to consider getting the base model, or at most the Tab S9 Plus, because of its portable size. And I find that I can still easily take notes with the Tab S9. So being able to take notes, landscape version if you want to be closer and more precise, or if you want a more generic size for like a paper-like size. This is slightly smaller than paper, of course, but you still get plenty of room to take notes on this as well. You can also hold this in your hand and take notes. Unlike the Tab S9 Ultra, that one is better used if you have the Tab S9 Ultra on a flat table. Otherwise, you're going to get very tired and very fatigued holding this tablet with the S Pen handheld. So you're better off putting the Tab S9 on a table. So this is great if you maybe are an artist. Potentially you want a bigger canvas to be able to really do your artistic stuff on here. But as far as what apps I've been using, I personally use Samsung Notes. I think it's one of the best note-taking apps available out there on Android, but unfortunately it is strictly tied down to Samsung phones and Samsung devices only. So if you have a Samsung tablet and then you have, say, a OnePlus phone or a Google Pixel, you can't access your notes on those phones. Even though it is Android, the Samsung Notes app is only available on Samsung devices. Prefer to type out your notes, then you can always connect either a proprietary keyboard like we discussed using a Samsung keyboard, one of those book cover keyboards, or you can just connect a wireless keyboard such as a Bluetooth keyboard and take notes that way. Of course, you'll have to find a way to prop these up, but you can find any case out there. Pretty much majority of cases out there will have some kind of feature that allows you to prop up the device. There will definitely, unfortunately, be bugs on some of these apps because they may not be the most optimized for an Android tablet. Some other productivity features that you can do on here that I personally use is just basic browsing. So basically just using the internet and then using multitasking as well. Samsung One UI, in my opinion, is one of the best software launchers out there that give you the most genuine useful features when it comes to multitasking. I strictly just use the tablet OS system. You do have something called Samsung DeX, which I personally don't use. They've even updated it to give you a more tablet mixed with a Windows-like experience, because Samsung DeX beforehand was pretty much a Chrome/Window-like interface that made it look like a laptop. You could have these window pop-ups, you could have a taskbar at the bottom that pretty much allowed you to snap your applications on the sides and be able to multitask. That's pretty much the extent to it because it didn't give you access to full desktop applications. With the latest Samsung DeX version, since with One UI 6.1, I believe, they added the taskbar at the bottom for the Z Fold and then now the tablets. It pretty much gave you a similar experience as Samsung DeX, but not going into Samsung DeX, if that makes sense. With this newer version, you get that taskbar always there, and you can again use it to open up your apps as windows and be able to snap your apps side to side. I personally don't use it. I just use the regular tablet version because I don't always find myself connected to a mouse and keyboard. And when you're trying to use that Samsung DeX with just your hands, with handheld mode, it really doesn't work the greatest in my opinion. But on the basic tablet OS for multitasking, you're able to split the screen with multi-window with up to 3 different applications. I sometimes find myself watching a video on each corner, then I have the calculator open at the bottom, along with some browser on the other side where I'm doing some kind of shopping. You're also able to drag and drop windows, again similar to when you're in Samsung DeX mode. And I personally have been starting to use these tablets to monitor myself with my Sony a7S III. So these just give me a bigger screen to view myself instead of relying on a small display on the camera itself. And one notable feature that I think is awesome that I personally don't use often, but it's because I don't really need to use it. But if I ever had to, I definitely would be happy that I had this device with me. And that's using these as a second screen for your Windows laptops. So if you carry a laptop but also want to carry a tablet with you, whether you want the bigger screen or not, both of them will work with this ability, which is where you're able to extend your screen from your laptop or your desktop device that's Windows and use this as a second monitor. This would be great as a main setup, although there will be some small delay. The quality won't be as crisp and you might notice a little bit of ghosting and some lag, but it still becomes very useful when you're out and about and you need a second screen. The next use case is my main use case on these tablets, and that's media consumption. I love watching videos on these tablets, and that's mainly because the display quality on these tablets is phenomenal. We already talked about the display quality that you get on here. On both of them is exactly the same and they both are great. It just again comes down to what size you prefer and need. If you're going to be traveling a lot, again, the Tab S9 will be more easier to hold handheld or just store it around and carry it around as well. The Tab S9 Ultra is best if you're going to be using this at home. If you're going to be keeping this in your home or maybe in an office, you can just use this to prop it up and watch movies and shows that way. I personally use this a lot when I'm eating. So when I'm having breakfast or having lunch or dinner, I'll use this tablet to watch my shows while I'm having a meal. The Tab S9, on the other hand, I'll use when I'm cooking. So this is great so it doesn't get in the way, especially when I don't have a lot of space in the kitchen. This doesn't get in the way as much as the Tab S9 Ultra would. So having this by the side, be able to watch a cooking video, or if I'm on the tablet, kicking back and relaxing, holding this handheld again, would be nice and comfortable to watch a show. Sometimes I'll even take this to the bathroom. I'll sit on the toilet and watch a show or video with the Tab S9. And I also use these tablets for listening to music. I personally find that with the quad fire and speakers, not only does this sound great for watching movies and shows, I usually keep my volume to around 25%, 30%, never over 50% because they get plenty loud. And when I want to listen to music and fill a whole room, these tablets do a great job for that. So if you don't have a speaker and just have your tablet on hand, these will get the job done. The last use case is gaming. Personally, I don't do it very often, but every now and then I'll need to use these for gaming of some sort, whether it be playing it handheld, such as games like Clash of Clans, maybe some handheld Minecraft or some Rocket League. The Tab S9 is my go-to and favorite for that because I can easily hold this with my hand and not feel fatigued after some time because it is on the slightly lighter side and more friendlier to use with your hands. But if I ever want to connect a controller, the Tab S9 Ultra is where I want to do it, just because you get a bigger display, you get a bigger screen to be able to actually game on and just connect a controller to it, and you have pretty much a portable gaming console with you. I've never streamed gaming on here before, but you can potentially do that as well. But I play games like Call of Duty with the controller as well as Minecraft if I don't feel like playing it handheld. And on both tablets, preferably in my opinion on the Tab S9 Ultra size, you can play games that are like tabletop games where you have more than 2 people or just more than one person playing on the screen at one time. The Tab S9 Ultra and also the Tab S9 will get the job done, but the Tab S9 Ultra will give you a fun experience. Now, I do want to touch on two small additional features that come with the software for the Samsung devices. The first one is the ecosystem. Being a Samsung tablet and then also using a Samsung phone makes it very easy to be able to connect these to receive calls and text messages on my tablet. I can also easily transfer files using Quick Share or even copy something on my clipboard and then easily being able to access that on either my Samsung tablet or on my Samsung phone. If you have Galaxy Buds, you can toggle on the auto switch feature, which means that if you're listening to media on one device and then you switch to another device, then your Galaxy Buds will easily switch between those two devices depending on which one's playing the audio. Both of these tablets now have Galaxy AI enabled on them as well, and you have pretty much the whole Galaxy AI suite. But I only use one or two of those. Number one will be Circle to Search. It is pretty convenient to be able to just circle something on your screen to be able to look it up easily without having to actually back out of the app that you're using and then use Google search. I also use the summarization feature on the Samsung internet. It just makes it easy to be able to quickly get a overall context of what the article or web page is talking about before I dive deep into it. And the Tab S9 series, I believe, is promised 5 years of security updates and 4 years of major OS updates. So it's been almost a year, so you're down to 3 and 4, but you're still going to be getting a lot of life out of these tablets when it comes to that software support. You'll typically see a software update every maybe 2 to 3 months. It's not as consistent as you would see one on your phone, but they still keep them updated and up to date with the latest features. Now, when it comes to the cameras on these tablets, I personally don't use them at all, ever. I used to use them a little bit when it came to scanning documents and uploading them to Samsung Notes, but that's rare now. So honestly, I'm just going to show you guys a couple of samples. The only difference here is going to be that the Tab S9 Ultra does have that 8 megapixel ultra wide included. To be honest, it's not that great, so they could have just not included it and it would have been just fine. And you also have the 12 megapixel wide camera on the front camera. So this is useful when you're on video calls potentially and you're not super zoomed out. You will get a slightly better quality image whenever it's closer to your face. So it's a main regular camera versus on the Tab S9, it's only an ultra wide. So the reason they did that is so that if you're on video calls, you can use that feature that it'll target you and zoom in and zoom out on you to make sure you're always in frame. But without further ado, I'm just going to show you guys some samples and you guys can just get an idea of what the quality is like. Personally, like I said, I don't use these cameras at all. Now we gotta talk about the battery life with these devices. The Tab S9 and the Tab S9 Ultra both have, in my opinion, very good battery life, at least with my use case, because you'll see with some of the screenshots I showed you of the battery settings, a lot of media consumption. Like I said, that's my main use case, so that's mainly what I do on these tablets, and it's not the most intensively draining usage on these tablets, but because they still last me 8+ hours of screen on time, it's still great to me. So I typically get anywhere from about maybe at minimum 12 to 16 hours to a maximum of sometimes 2, sometimes even 3 days of battery life. So it really does depend on what I do on my tablets and how I use them over the past couple of days. And sometimes even the weekends, I use them a little bit less, which is ironic. On the weekdays, I use them more. But either way, I do find that these tablets have no issues with battery life. Of course, if you're going to be a more productive and intensive user, such as someone who's more creative, maybe you use a creative application such as LumaFusion for video editing, because that's something I didn't talk about when it comes to productivity. I don't do that kind of stuff on these tablets. I personally prefer a laptop for those use cases. So with that being said, my use case, my battery life experience is overall positively good. Now the charging speeds is quite long for both of them. They both have 45 watts of fast charging. I think the Tab S9 takes around an hour and 20 to 15 minutes to fully charge versus the Tab S9 Ultra takes around an hour and 30 minutes or so to fully charge. So not that much of a huge difference, but it still takes quite a bit. So if you're in a pinch though, you can charge this for half an hour and you should get about 50 to 60, sometimes 70% battery life. So in the end, the Tab S9 series of tablets are both well worth it in my opinion. They both provide you with fantastic specs as far as design, hardware, and also performance. It just comes down to your use case. Is your use case going to be optimized for an Android tablet? And then if it is, what size do you need? Which size do you prefer? If you're someone who's going to be doing a lot of traveling back and forth between home, work, school, whatever, then I would definitely recommend that you get the Tab S9. The smaller portable form factor is much nicer and you get everything that you would get on the Ultra except for those camera differences on a smaller form factor. If you're going to be in between, like you sometimes will be using it between different locations, but mostly we'll keep it in one place and then sometimes we want to travel with it, and the Tab S9 Plus, the middle ground, will be the best way to go. Or if you know this is just going to stay at home, in my bedroom, in my office, etc., get the Ultra, the bigger screen. It's a phenomenal experience. It's a killer device and you're going to enjoy how big of a display this is, especially if you're going to be using this propped up a lot. You definitely get the Ultra. You're going to love the bigger display. But with that being said, I hope this video was helpful. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and peace.